there are the Warriors putting the finishing touches on the Grizzlies from Tuesday night in the play-in tournament. NBA playoff field is fully set, and we welcome you in there with the call from TNT. Kevin Harlan and Reggie Miller from Chase Center on Tuesday as the Warriors advance as the 7 seed after all the battles, the trials and tribulations of the last 2.5 months of the regular season. The Warriors are in the playoffs. They are the 7 seed, and they're going to be the team that has to wait longer than anybody to play their round 1, game 1 matchup tomorrow night as the NBA playoffs tipping off here shortly in the Eastern Conference. And we welcome you in. It's Just Dubs at JD John Dickinson here on KNBR. 808 KNBR, the number, 415-808-5627. If you want to jump in and join the conversation, we've got a 2-hour show for you before I am headed off to Houston. And, of course, game 1 tomorrow night at 6:30, game 2 Wednesday night at 6:30. But we got a full day of just Bay Area sports coverage for you here on the Sports Leader with Just Dubs here for the next couple of hours. And we got a special edition of 49er Forecast with Larry Krueger, because there's this thing called the NFL Draft, which is now 5 days away, and that's coming up on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday next week. And as we joked the other night, the Warriors are going to be able to play their first 2 games, and then the entire NFL Draft will take place before the Warriors actually play game 3, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we're looking forward to Larry coming up, a 2-hour draft preview show, and there is nobody better in the business at breaking all that down and what the 49ers need to be doing in the draft than Larry Krueger. So jam-packed day. And we got Giants baseball after that. The Giants and the Angels, game 2 of their 3-game series down in Anaheim, and we'll have you covered all throughout the afternoon leading up to that first pitch, which is this evening. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. The number, the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open. We appreciate, as always, everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch as folks file in here for the next couple of hours. And the bottom line, I mean, this show, Kyle, and you know this, we got Kyle Har, Raf Corral, both in our San Francisco studios. Kyle, I hate preview shows. I hate preview. I hate, the Giants are playing the Angels. We're going to preview the matchup. Like, yeah, of course, you got to do pregame shows. Like, pregame shows are part of the deal. I'm not hitting on that necessarily, but I don't love overblown preview shows. Like, reaction is really where it's at. But once you get to the playoffs in any sport, I mean, all right, you can do a full-blown preview show, at least for a couple of hours. Once you get to the NFL draft, you can do a full-blown preview show for a couple of hours. So that's what this is going to turn into, but we like to keep it as interactive as possible always. So just right off the top, question of the day, and maybe we do a little social media component to this as well, as we usually do our Dubs OT question of the night. Greg Silver just has confirmed, fresh off jury duty, Greg Silver's going to hop on at about 11 o'clock. Yeah, Greg got dismissed. I was filling in for Greg yesterday. Greg actually got the 5 o'clock, you make the call, and then most of the time they just tell you don't have to show up. Like I shouldn't jinx it, but I've got about a 20-year streak going to that. I did though in my early 20s have to go, and I ended up on a jury I was telling Greg Papa this, I ended up on a jury for like a month, and it was not the most interesting of cases. Like, everybody's like, oh, you were on a jury? Like, is this going to be, was it a murder case? Was it like, what was it? Drug smuggling, cartels, what, like, no, it was not like you instantly think of all your favorite movies and TV shows. It was nothing like that. Actually, it was interesting, yet quite boring as well. But yeah, I think if you can take a month of my time for my civic duty, I can maybe do it once every 20 years. So we're a couple of years away from maybe that. But I was joking with Greg, who was basically, Greg in his 20s, like, bro, like, I had to go for like a month. Anyway, he got dismissed. He had to actually go to the courthouse and report. So he got past the first stage, and then I think they either got their jury or he said a bunch of wild stuff that, would get himself disqualified, and they let him out. So Greg, fresh off of the jury duty experience yesterday, and it was a pleasure filling in for him. Filled in for Papa a little bit earlier this week. Great to hear that Papa's doing better. He was a little bit under the weather. And so Greg's going to join us. We'll get his thoughts. Since he didn't really get a chance to share his thoughts yesterday on his show, he's going to get a chance to share his thoughts on the series coming up on this show, which obviously is one that he helped to build. But the question to get to here in the first segment, just give me a prediction. And we can come up with some multiple choice if you want, but it truly is. I mean, what is it? Is it Warriors in 7? Warriors in 6? Rockets in 5? Whatever it is, the gentleman's sweep for the Rockets. Warriors take the first 2, come home, lay an egg, win game 4, close it out in Houston. I mean, I think every scenario other than a Rockets sweep is on the table. I think every scenario other than the Rockets winning 4 straight games is on the table in this series. I could see the Warriors sweeping this series, believe it or not. Doesn't mean I think they will, but I could see it. I could see them winning the first 2, win the first game in Houston. Houston gets a little tight. They lose their composure. Young team going up against, and then all of a sudden they drop game 2 at home also. And then you're coming back to Chase, and the route could be on, with the Warriors obviously smelling blood and the Chase Center crowd smelling blood. And as we learned a couple of weeks ago, God, it feels like that Warriors-Rockets game that was just played, the most recent head-to-head matchup, it feels like that game was like 2 months ago, and it was not even 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago tomorrow at Chase, and the Warriors ended up losing that game, and you had Ime Udoka basically calling the Warriors a bunch of freaking whiners, and there was the back and forth with Steph Curry. And look, this series, and again, we want your predictions, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627, Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line, and in the YouTube chat as well as folks file in here on this Saturday morning. Give me your predictions for this series officially, as it will tip off tomorrow, 6:30 for game 1, 6:30 for game 2 in Houston. Again, 2 days off between game 1 and game 2, and then 2 more days off between game 2 and game 3. Then it's every other day once you hit game 3, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, if it winds up getting all the way to the end on May the 4th. But I think the Warriors have to like the way that this thing sets up for them early. And so I think they have to make hay early in this series. Otherwise, they could wind up in trouble. I do think, the juxtaposition between these two teams, you've got the Warriors led by the OGs. You've got the Steph, Draymond, Steve Kerr, with now Jimmy Butler, who I do think is a championship caliber player, even though he has not won an NBA championship. But you've got the Warriors led by the guys in their mid and I guess now late 30s, with Steph in his most recent birthday. And then a smattering of young players who are going to be huge for Golden State around that core group, and some vets, some mid-vets, those kinds of players. But really the Rockets are the opposite. The Rockets are all about, they are built on their young core with Alperen Şengün and Jalen Green and Jabari Smith, Amen Thompson. Probably should have mentioned him second, because he is going to be all over the place in this series. But you've got the Rockets with the young core, with the edgy head coach, encouraging that young core to be completely unafraid of anybody, including a bunch of champions on the other end in Steph Curry and Draymond Green. And then you've got the Rockets with a smattering of veteran players that are going to be very important that they play well. So it's really the opposite. You've got the core of the Warriors is old. You've got the key question mark players, I think, are the young ones, Moses Moody, Brandon Pajemski. And then you've got the Rockets who are based on their vet or their young guys, and then the vets are the important, glue guys to mix in. And there are some villains. You look at those key vets. The key vets are basically former Warrior playoff villains in Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks and even Steven Adams, who gets an opportunity to go up against the Dubs again in the postseason. So thrilling matchup on paper. I think, and I've said this a bunch of different times here over the course of the last week since we learned the final matchup. I mean, I think this is going to be an absolute knockdown, drag out, physical, just grudge match. I mean, I hate to use the term, Kyle, because it's just, I mean, it's like this series is going to be kind of a virtual bloodbath. Like, I don't know that there's actually going to be blood spilled, although there probably will be at some point. But this series is just going to be absolutely, I think it's going to be the most tense, terse, angry, just, needing to be separated series, hope that nobody gets injured in the midst of it. Kind of a series among any in the Western Conference. I do think there's some pretty good Western Conference series. Lakers, Timberwolves going to start tonight. I love that series. I love Denver and the Clippers. Obviously, Warriors, Rockets, I think is going to be terrific. But this thing is really set up to be, I think, the head. It may not going in be the headliner series. I think that's probably Lakers, either the Lakers series or the Clippers series against the Nuggets. Probably Lakers, Timberwolves on paper with Ant going up against LeBron and Luka. I mean, that's the series I think with the most overall star power. And that's why they're playing tonight at 5:30 down in Los Angeles. And if the Warriors had beat the Clippers, they'd be playing. I'd be in LA right now, and they'd be playing tonight at 5:30 down at Crypto.com Arena. But I just think that the young versus old, can the Warriors physically match up in the grudge match against athletes and size? Because the Rockets have that going for them. The Rockets have the athletes. The Rockets have the size. Do the Rockets have enough skill? I think up and down their rotation becomes a major question. And can the Warriors get enough from the Pajemskis and the Moody's? Because I think the one thing that we've seen is that we know they're probably going to get enough from Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. Can the Rockets take Steph away enough? Is Jimmy then aggressive enough? I mean, we've seen full-blown playoff play-in superstar look to score Jimmy Butler these last couple of games. He's ended any doubt as to whether or not he's still got that in the tank. And now I think the Warriors are going to have to lean on it. You look at the most recent matchup. I mean, it was one of the worst games of Steph Curry's career. Back on April the 6th, he scored 3 points. He made 1 basket, bunch of turnovers. And Jimmy Butler shot the ball, I think, 7 times in that game and ended up with 13 points. Wasn't super aggressive. And I think that game in and of itself, even though these teams played 5 times, that game, I think, was the one that you could probably take the most away from. But I do think you have to put the caveat that the Warriors had just played their 3 most emotional games of the entire season and won them all in the lead up to that. I think that was a game where the Warriors were gassed. I think they were trying to find an emotional lift that just wasn't there. 4th game in 6 nights, all of that. I think that's why Draymond was trying so hard to not back down to Şengün and the double technicals and trying to incite the crowd, which really didn't need much help. Crowd was on. Like, Warrior fans do not like the look of that Rocket jersey. It doesn't matter who's wearing it. Kyle Haar could be wearing that Rockets jersey. They'd be booing the hell out of him. Like, it's just the way Warrior fans roll. And honestly, the Grizzlies too. There was it wasn't quite full-blown Rockets, and obviously it was a play-in game and the Warriors needed a win, but man, you throw on that Grizzly uniform and you're going to get some heat coming into Chase Center to a significant extent, given all the playoff battles. And again, these two teams playing franchises at least for what will be the fifth time in the last decade, with the Warriors, of course, knocking the Rockets out the prior iteration in 2015, 2016, 2018 in the conference finals, of course. That series going 7 with the Warriors not having home court advantage and winning game 7 on the road, winning game 1 on the road. And the 27 consecutive missed three-pointers on that game, Memorial Day night back in 2018. And then the Warriors knocking the Rockets out in 2019. And that dominance really continued really up until this season, where the Warriors had won the first couple of matchups. They're beating the Rockets even without Steph Curry. A lot of eyes, as always, going to be on Jonathan Kuminga in this series. He's played his best basketball of the season against the Rockets. Kuminga now obviously in a different role. Could he be an X factor? Give me your X factors and your wild cards as well. That's something to throw out there in the chat on the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line and via the phone lines if you want to give Raf Corral a call, 808-KNBR, 415-808-5627. He's ready for you. We do have a couple of lines open here at the top of the show. But yeah, prediction 1, X factor or wild card, because I think those are two different things. I think an X factor is different. I think Jonathan Kuminga, for example, is a wild card. He's a wild card in this thing. I don't think he's an X factor. I don't think he's I think like Quentin Post is actually my X factor in this series, because I think he had the potential to play and draw Sengun out. I think he has the opportunity to really spread that defense out a little bit more, give the Warriors some areas to where they can attack with his shooting. And he, for whatever reason, he's just got it in him. Make or miss, he does seem to be the most consistently confident among all the Warrior young players in their shot. Like, Podziemski sometimes is. Moody, it goes in some of the time, but you don't ever, he'll take it, but I think it goes quickly. Sometimes the confidence for Moody and the confidence for Podziemski. But Quentin Post is taking the shot, and he thinks the shot's going in. And I think that's an important component when you look at, you got to have that if you're going to be able to be successful at the playoff level. And so much of the questions, give me your biggest question mark for the Warriors in this series. Is it Amen Thompson? Is it how the Rockets are able to defend Steph Curry? Is it Podziemski and Moody's ability to make shots? What's the biggest question mark? We'll get into all of that as well. So X factors, wild cards, predictions, all of that coming up here between now and noon as we preview the Warriors and the Rockets in this Western Conference first-round playoff series that's going to begin in Houston. Warriors are favored in this series in the betting market, one of just 2 in the last 37 years. One of 2, just the second number 7 seed to be favored. The Lakers back in 2021 against the Suns, and the Suns ended up winning that series and going all the way to the NBA Finals Lakers broke down in that series. LeBron broke down. Anthony Davis broke down in that series. Lakers were actually in position. I think they had split or maybe even had a 2-1 lead, if memory serves. I might be mixing that up. But anyway, Anthony Davis got hurt, and they just kind of they didn't have enough, obviously, against Phoenix. But that's the only 7 against a 2 that's been favored. There's never been a 7 that's gone on to win a championship. The lowest seed to win an NBA championship was the Houston Rockets as a 6 seed 30 years ago, back in 1995, with Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. And that was a back-to-back champion. They had won the year before, and then they came back, made the trade for Clyde Drexler, another future Hall of Famer, to go with Hakeem, and ended up having the ability to go win the NBA championship. And they have the ability. They did something that I think the Warriors may have to do. That Rockets team from 30 years ago did something that I think the Warriors may have to do if they are going to win a championship. That Rockets team beat the 1, 2, and 3 seeds in the West and then beat the number 1 seed in the East pretty impressively. We'll see. I think the Celtics are coming out of the East early. Oklahoma City, I think Memphis is the most interesting matchup among the group of teams between Dallas and Sacramento that they could have played for Oklahoma City. But Oklahoma City's going to win that series. I'm leaning Clippers over Denver, although I think that's a terrific series. I'm leaning Warriors over Rockets. I think that's going to be the most physical grudge match kind of a series. And then I'm leaning Lakers over Timberwolves as well. So I think Warriors may have to beat the 2, the 3, and the 1 in the Western Conference playoffs to get themselves to the finals, although I do think Boston emerges able to beat Cleveland in a conference finals. I don't think Cleveland's necessarily going to get beat before that. Boston and New York, I think, will be interesting in the second round, but I think the Celtics eventually are going to be the team that's going to come out of it. All right, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. X Factors and Wildcards, straight up predictions, biggest question mark for both teams. Let's dive into it. Let's get to the phones here. And Dave and Napa getting us rolling here on the Sports Leader. What's going on, Dave?
Hey, how's it going, man? Go Warriors. Beal is the X Factor and Post. I think you're right about Post. Beal's a wild card. He can shoot from 3. They're going to dog Curry everywhere like they did last game, beat the crap out of him, just guard the 3-point line. And then Post is, Post and Kurt.
Dave, you said Beal. Who you're talking about Beal? Who did you mean? I'm trying to think who you meant.
3-point shooter, number 7. Who's a 3-point shooter? That guy out there, that new guy.
Oh, Buddy Hield. Okay, Hield. Guy, I got you. Buddy Hield. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
I misheard you there, Dave.
Yeah, my bad. So it's early, but and then I don't think Kuminga is going to play much. Frankly, we can't go Twin Towers with him. It's too much of a wild card to have him do it. And I saw a great video on media the other day of Quentin Post trash talking LeBron the last Lakers game, and I just love that guy's attitude.
Yeah, he was all in LeBron's mix. He was talking to Luka like he's fearless, and he plays like he's fearless. Not always perfect. Sometimes he does look like a young player still learning out there, makes some mistakes, but he definitely has the confidence that he belongs out there on the court, which I think it's more than half the battle, to be honest, Dave. And so I think he's somebody that can be trusted, at least initially coming into the series. And if he's hitting shots, if the Warriors are hitting shots, they're winning this series. Bottom line, I think the question is, can the Rockets defend them to a point where it really turns into a slog and they can't hit shots consistently? And I think the Warriors can still win it ugly if they have to, but that's where you start talking about a 6-7 game series and one that could be really extremely physically demanding, Dave.
Yeah, I think it's Dubs in 6. I think they take the first game in Houston. I agree with you that. I think Jimmy Butler is just going to be the MVP. I think they're all over Curry. They're going to try and stifle him, and Butler's going to do what he did last game, which is just go to the hoop and go to the line. How many free throws did he have? Like 25 or something. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? So.
Yeah, he's in the double digits with regularity in terms of the free throws and even pushing, 14, 15 in some of these games. So I think playoff Jimmy is huge. I think we've seen it against the Clippers. We saw it against the Grizzlies. If the Warriors are going to get that Jimmy Butler, then they have the opportunity to win multiple playoff series. There's no doubt. And if that's going to be the Jimmy Butler, Dave, and I think the other part of why the Warriors are favored in this thing, and it's been said, not really new, but on paper, going into the series, the Warriors have the best two players in Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. And can the Rockets, by the time it's all said and done, make those two not be the best two players? Are we going to look back after 6-7 games and go, oh, actually Jalen Green was better than Jimmy, or had a better series than Jimmy, or Sengun was unstoppable? Can the Rockets do that? I think that's what it's going to have to turn into for them to have a chance in this series. And frankly, I just don't see it, Dave. I think the Warriors are going to win this thing.
No, I agree. Warriors in 6 because of their experience. And can we just retire Dylan Brooks and the stupid damn hairdo? God damn it. I hate that guy.
All right, Dave. Thanks, brother. Have a good one, man. Happy Saturday to you out in Napa. Yeah, and just Dylan Brooks, man. He does some things to Warrior fans. And the history is there for the Warriors and Dylan Brooks. The history is there from the there's a very Grizzlies feel to the Rockets. There's a very and look, I think that 2022 Grizzlies team was more talented and at least more skilled, but the grit and grind and this team has that kind of edge, that want the smoke edge. And the question became as the series went on, Grizzlies really want the smoke? Grizzlies really want the smoke or not? And so I think that will be tested in this series. I think the composure of both teams is going to be tested in this series as well. I think that's going to be huge. Which team can get the other more and more frustrated as the series goes on? Can the Warriors hold their composure? Can the Rockets force them to lose their composure? I think young, emotional teams like the Rockets have a tendency in the first go-round when things are not maybe clicking the way that they want, they can come unraveled a little bit. I think the Warriors, especially early in this series, that's going to be something to keep an eye on if Golden State is prepared and locked in and making life difficult for the Rockets to be able to exist offensively, because Houston really needs their defense to turn into offense because their half-court offense is not where it's at. So 808 KNBR, let's go and take a quick timeout. 415-808-5627. We'll get back to the phones here in just a second. We'll get to the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line. Kyle's Clicks coming up here as well between now and 11 o'clock. And then we'll talk to Greg Silver at 11 o'clock as we keep this thing rolling. Just Dubs on a Saturday, playoff preview edition here on the Sports Leader. So who's Two-Face and Riddler? That's the real question. I think we know who Joker is. Joker's Joker. Is Two-Face LeBron? Two-Face. Who's Two-Face, Kyle Har?
Maybe like I'm trying to think who's actually Two-Face in the whole league.
No, I couldn't. Doug Christie? Two-Face? Doug Christie? I don't know. That again, we digress. Back here, just Dubs with
Klay
JD,
Thompson?
John Dickinson. Welcome back. No, not Klay Thompson. Come on, not Klay Thompson. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Jimmy Butler ready to be Steph Curry's Robin because Steph Curry is Batman. And the NBA playoffs already off and rolling. Indiana and Milwaukee underway from Indianapolis, and the Pacers a 33-23 lead. They're playing without Damian Lillard in game one of this series. Giannis doing his thing to completely prevent it from being a blowout, but it's been, for the most part, all Pacers in the first quarter of that one, round one, game one there. 3 more games today, 3 more games tomorrow before the Warriors will be the final game one, the Warriors and the Rockets. And, of course, we're going to be all over it here with the best Dubs coverage in the Bay. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Let's get back to the phones. Your predictions, your X factors and wild cards, and your biggest question marks. You can touch any or all of that here on the phone lines or in the YouTube chat or on the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line between now and noon here. Just Dubs, our Warrior Playoff Preview Edition. Mark in San Francisco is up next here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Mark.
Hey, JD, this is going to be a big test for our young players, especially Moody and Paz. They got to really step up in this series.
And it's shot making, I think, above everything else. And I'll tell you another thing it is, Mark. It's and this goes for Steph and Draymond too, because they are the biggest defenders. You cannot turn the ball over against the Rockets and expect to win. They need those turnovers to lead to offense going the other way. And if you look at the 2 games the Warriors lost against the Rockets, it was 20 turnovers in both of those games for Golden State. And again, you turn it over against the Rockets and it's in play, live ball. It's basically a dunk on the other end because they're so damn quick at getting the ball up the court in those transition situations, and they just dunk it on you or lay it up and get fouled or whatever. So I'm with you. I think it's shot making. I think it's decision making as well, and just overall poise for the Warriors. But I think there's a confidence level, Mark, in the biggest games that the veteran guys are going to do it, and the Warriors have a bunch of guys who they're counting on, from Moody to Podziemski to potentially Quentin Post. Maybe even Kuminga works his way back in, but all of those guys really, other than Moody, who played in the Sacramento and Lakers series in the rotation for the bulk of those 2 series 2 years ago, none of them really have significant, impactful experience.
No, and they're going to have to step up now because if Curry's going to be double covered continually, then the other guys are going to have to score when they're open, and they're going to have to make their shots. But I think you made the key. It's turnovers. We got to cut down on the turnovers. Houston's athletic, and they'll burn us.
Yep, they force a lot of turnovers. They need it. Like we said, Mark, thank you for the phone call. Really appreciate it and enjoy the series. 808 KNBR, Mark's line open for you if you want to jump in and join the conversation. The Rockets are not a good half-court offensive team. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. The Rockets, I think it's a 12th ranked offense overall, but they don't have enough shooting. Their half court offense, I think, is bottom 3rd in the NBA, like 20 to 30 in the NBA. The half court offense really revolves around Alperen Sengun. Draymond specifically defended Sengun pretty well. I think Sengun is I think tougher than maybe meets the eye. Like, I don't think Sengun's going to be somebody that's going to get intimidated. He didn't get intimidated a couple of weeks ago when Draymond was going at him. But to get that offense up to the top half of the league, Houston really relies on their defense. And I think it's which of the young guys and the Rockets' better players are their young guys supplemented by the vets. The Warriors' better players are the vets supplemented by some young guys that are going to have to come through. But I think as you start to look at questions for this series, it really comes down to which young guys are ready or not ready for the big moment, both ways, both teams. It's how does Sengun handle the moment? How does Amen Thompson handle the moment? How does Jalen Green handle the moment? Jalen Green has not played well against the Warriors, not shot well against the Warriors, other than the game where he hit some threes a couple of weeks ago. Dylan Brooks has been more of a shot maker in this season of his career than any other. Does that continue? A lot of those things on the table here to continue to get into. All right, let's get an initial, and I did want to do a text here, 650 Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line. The odds say Dubs in 6. I'm rolling Dubs in 6. I know that does feel like the chalk pick, but I think the Warriors, I think they get one of the first two. I think they get 3 and 4. I think they lose game 5. And I think they come back and they close it out in 6. That truly is kind of the chalk team that doesn't have home court advantage pick. But I think that's how this series plays out. I do think there's an outside chance the Warriors win the first 2. Like, I could see the Warriors winning game 1 and the Rockets kind of being a little tight in game 2, and then the Warriors get on them again and hold on, and all of a sudden it's 2-0. But what we've seen from the Warriors is if they do get up 2-0, they're probably going to lose a game at home. Like that just like I now the extra rest and potential for all of that would be huge if they did it. But I could see that them losing one at home, then losing one back in Houston, and then having to win it in 6 that way too. So I think all of those different scenarios are on the table here. I do think there is an added emphasis on the early part of this series for the Warriors. I think the Warriors have to make hay in the first 4 games of the series, and here's why. It's simple. It's the rest. It's the experience. Here's where I think experience matters. I think experience matters in game 1. I think experience matters the first time you lose in a series. So if you think about it, it's game 1, experience matters. And I think experience truly matters in the pivot points of a series. Game 1, game 5, if it's 2-2, and game 7. To me, that's where the experience is truly at its most beneficial, because all of those pivot points are going to be completely new for a majority of the Houston Rockets. And the Warriors, at least Steph and Draymond and Steve Kerr, have seen and done it all. Jimmy's seen and done a lot. Not everything. He's seen and done a lot and been through a lot. And I think a battle-tested competitor. But as you look at this series and 4 days off in the lead up to tomorrow night in game 1, 2 days off before game 2, 2 days off before game 3, with travel in between. To me, the Warriors have to be up 2-1 after 3, and I think they have to, at that point, win game 4 to go up 3-1, because then it's every other day with travel. You're basically either traveling or playing for that final week of the season. And obviously the Warriors would, you get to game 4, which is a week from Monday, and you're flying Tuesday, playing Wednesday, flying home Wednesday night, gathering yourself Thursday, playing Friday, and if you have to play game 7, you're flying back on Saturday. So you basically have one off day and recovery day, like full-blown off day and recovery day, if you're the Warriors, in between game 5 and game 6. And that's only if you're coming off of a late night flight where you're probably getting in at 3 a.m. back home and are basically taking Thursday off other than a prep meeting to go over some of the game plan and adjustments and any things that are going to need to be done there. So I think Warriors in 6 would be my call. The odds say Warriors in 6. I get it. It's a little bit of the chalk pick, but I think that's the way this thing sets up. But the Warriors have to make hay early. I think if they're in trouble early, it's going to be incredibly difficult with the youth of the Rockets plus the confidence. The Rockets the experience kind of goes out the window if the Rockets can play this series from a position of advantage. If the Rockets are up 1-0, then the experience may matter for the Warriors to keep themselves focused and locked in to be able to come back. But if it's 1-0 Rockets, then they're going to be confident. If it's 2-1 Rockets, then they're going to be confident. Like that's the part. If they're going home 2-2, they're going to be confident. Like it just, that experience level, I think, does kind of go away unless the Warriors keep making it matter with their play and with the ability to win games earlier on in the series. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Let's get some Kyle's clicks here on Just Dubs on this Saturday morning, our first installment. Let's just run through a bunch. Joke's on you, Warriors in 7. It's going to be a slugfest. I didn't like what I saw from the role players down the stretch. Yeah, the Warriors, I mean, one of the big questions in the game on Tuesday, anybody other than Steph Curry going to be able to step up and hit a shot in the fourth quarter as the Grizzlies are trying to steal that game? And the answer was no. And they still won. And I think you can win a game in a series like that. I don't think you can win 4 games like that. I think Jimmy and Steph can win you 2 on just sheer dominance. And it was really Jimmy dominant throughout and then Steph bringing it home. But I do think that the question marks for the role players and the young role players in particular, I think, are fair. I also think as long as you don't turn the basketball over, the matchup against the Rockets is unique in a sense that I don't think the Rockets have a good enough half-court offense or a good enough clutch offense themselves to basically win this thing without the Warriors kind of giving it to them on a silver platter with turnovers. So I think that's the safety net that the Warriors potentially have in this series for me, that they wouldn't have against the Lakers, that they wouldn't have against the Nuggets, that they wouldn't have against the Clippers. Like, that's part of why I truly do believe that this is the best matchup for the Warriors in round 1 as everything shook out the way that it did. I think there's a little added margin for error as long as the Warriors don't look completely physically overwhelmed. I go back to, and Kyle, you may remember this last year, the Timberwolves Suns series. Different circumstances, but do you remember that? Do you remember that series? Timberwolves Suns. Vaguely. Vaguely. The one thing that became apparent, and the Timberwolves swept them. And a lot of people thought Phoenix was going to win, a little older team. Obviously, it was a little bit of a precursor to where Phoenix was going to end up this year. But the one thing that was apparent early in that series, game 1, game 2, Minnesota physically overwhelmed them, and you could see it. You were like, whoa, like the Suns are a little old and a little unathletic. And it just, the Timberwolves have more zip, more juice. And that would be the one thing to look for. Like, if this thing truly, if there's something that we have not accounted for as it relates to the Warriors here, to me, it would, and I think we've seen those two teams play recently enough to where I don't think it's necessarily in play. But if you're like, JD, like, what's the one thing that really, like, what would be the one thing where we all kind of have this map for what this series is going to look like? What would be the one thing where you go, oh, this is big trouble early? It would be that the Warriors look physically just overmatched from an athleticism standpoint. Rockets are flying around. They're ball hawking. They're getting layups and dunks. They're running out. They're just completely overwhelming defensively. That to me, and not fouling, because the Warriors just look a step slow and like they can't hang. That would be really the only OS moment if I were a Warrior fan going into this thing in the first couple of games. And again, I used the Minnesota Phoenix series from last year, and I know probably most of you were not completely locked in on that series. Kyle wasn't. I mean, he probably watched some of it, but I get it. But you saw early Minnesota was just, they were the younger, quicker, faster team that had a lot of dog in them. And again, I think this Warriors team has a ton more dog in them than that Phoenix team did to be able to push and fight back. But it was a physical mismatch. All right, Bob in Brooklyn next on the phone lines. We'll get back to Kyle's clicks in just a minute. What's going on, Bob?
Hey, JD, man, big fan. To listen to you for years. First time actually calling, but yeah, you had some questions about X Factor. To me, after just rewatching all these games, I felt pretty confident in Moody and Post. I think they are what they are. I think, Moody brings the defense. He moves well on the offensive side, doesn't hit his shots all the time, but you can expect maybe 8 to 12 points from him. Post is just Post, right? That guy's, like you said, fearless, throwing up those threes, but, defensively is always a question. To me, just after rewatching these games, it's just like the volatility of Pod is just, when he's going, like, that team looks unstoppable. But like when he looks bad in that last game against Memphis, wow, that was a rough game for him. Like, they look very vulnerable, in my opinion. So to me, the key X factor is Pods and what he's going to bring. And if he doesn't bring it, then they're going to have to rely on Gary Payton, which we all know just doesn't bring anything offensively. Just seeing them kind of like get the ball in the key, not even look at the rim, always frustrates me. But yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on that. And, thanks for all the knowledge you bring to us fans. So thanks, JD.
No, I appreciate it, Bob. Thanks for checking in. I think Pods is a good call. And I think you can speak to the other two first. Quentin Post, you're right, could be a defensive liability. I think maybe not as much in this series. I do think they need his shooting. I do think they're going to have to try to play Buddy Hield for his shooting. I think it could be a quick hook potentially if they look overwhelmed and aren't hitting shots. But there's a steadiness to Moody, and I think there's a steadiness to Pods too when he's hitting shots and he's confident. I think that steadiness can be shaken a little bit more. Because he ends up with the ball in his hands a lot, and his decision making, whether it's to take the shot or keep the ball moving, I think is always something that's important. And so I think, yeah, there is a steadiness to Moody, and Moody's defense has been significantly improved. His grit and hustle has been significantly improved. I know there were a couple of plays in the Clippers game that maybe frustrated Steve Kerr a little bit. I don't think it was necessarily a lack of effort. I think it was just kind of wrong place, wrong time, maybe an extra step away. But there is a steadiness to Moody's game to where he takes the right shot, even if he doesn't always hit it. He's willing enough defensively to where it's like, yeah, he can be out there sometimes when he's not hitting shots and not completely kill you. Pods does other things, but yeah, when he is missing shots and or not making the right decision because he's a little bit less confident in his shot, that can lead to turnovers. That can lead to, throwing grenades to others who can't do anything with it at the end of the shot clock. That can lead to bad shots that are runouts going the other way for the Rockets in transition. So I think Pods is a fair one to bring up as it relates to X Factor. And he really has been. You can't have both of them not hitting. I think that's you could probably get away with one of them between Pods and Moody not hitting, but you really where it gets difficult is when neither one of them are hitting, and Buddy Hield's less playable, and Quentin Post, even if he's playing well, is still only going to play maybe 15 minutes tops in a game because others need to be on the court. So I think that's where it can become a little bit more problematic. But shot selection is going to be important in this series. as well as the Warriors look to win it. But no, Pods is a good call. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Again, your predictions, your X factor and or wild card, and your biggest question mark for the Warriors going into the series. All of those things. Let's get a couple more here. Kyle's clicks for a minute or two, and then we'll take another timeout. San Jose Jazz fan 4. If we see Brandon Pudsbricksky, Guy Bricktos, Jonathan Cabricka, Moses Bricky Heald, Cabrick Looney, Draymond Brick, and Gary Brickton II, we lose. That might be the comment of the year from San Jose Jazz fan 4. Wow. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's all bad. If all of those are going in the wrong direction, it's all bad, San Jose. All right, let's continue on here, man. That really read the Steed. The X factor might be consistent shooting. Can you get 4 games of quality shooting? Can you get 2 games of quality shooting and another 2 games you mad dog to win? I think that's a question mark. And again, the one thing that can offset the others not shooting it well, the one thing that can offset it is dominant Jimmy Butler. And you may say, well, JD, they're going to need dominant Jimmy Butler and the rest of it. And that quite possibly could be true, but I think dominant Jimmy Butler does have the potential to offset a little bit of the lack of shooting in other areas. All right, 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Let's do one more, and we're going to take a timeout. Good one there from Read the Steed. Jason Mishler, love QP's game. He's just got to get stronger under the cup, and he'll be a perfect stretch 5. Yeah, he tries like that. He definitely battles. And I think his finishing around the basket definitely needs to be better. I think he's learning where to be in the right spot and how to defend even without being the most athletic. I think he's willing. I think the effort level is there. I just think he needs a little bit more experience and, yes, potentially to up his athleticism and strength a little bit more to be able to benefit along the way. And sure, he's somebody that would definitely, again, project to play anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes a game in the regular season moving forward. All right, let's take a timeout. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. More from the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line. More on the phone lines coming up. But Greg Silver is going to join us coming up next. We'll ask him all the questions we've been asking you and give him an opportunity to weigh in on this series. It's Just Dubs with JD on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader. Totally different Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy, play-in Jimmy, game 82 Jimmy, whatever you want to call it. Jimmy Butler making his presence felt, and the Warriors need it, and they need it to continue if they are going to advance in the NBA playoffs, which begin tomorrow. We're back here with just Dubs. JD, John Dickinson, playoffs underway in Indiana. Pacers 55, Milwaukee 41, about 3 minutes to go before halftime in the first game of that series. Warriors are going to have to wait the final game one, round one, tomorrow night in Houston, 6:30 local time, 8:30 Central. Of course, we're going to be all over it, and we'll have Dubs OT immediately following the game there. 808 KNBR, hour number 2, 415-808-5627. Our questions on the board. Simple series prediction. Give me your X factor and or wild card for the Warriors. I think those can be two separate things. And then your biggest question mark for the Warriors coming into this series. Let's go out to the phones and bring in friend of the program, occasional co-host of the program, co-host of Papa and Silver here 10 to 2, Monday through Friday on KNBR. It's Greg Silver. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on? Great to be with you. Happy Saturday. Happy NBA playoffs. And at this rate, I thought I was going to be introduced as Brick Silver.
I know, right? I mean, everybody. John Dickinson. Let's go. Kyle Harbrick.
No, this is awesome, man. I mean, NBA playoffs are a time of year that I always love just in general. And last year, obviously very different with the Warriors getting bounced in the 9-10 game. And I still was into it and still watched just about every series. But the Warriors are now back in a familiar place, or at least recently familiar place, for all those true diehards are like playoffs. Shout out to Jim Mora there and everything. But no, it's exciting. They get that last game, as you just said, coming into the segment. So get to watch everybody else and get to pretend to be interested in the Eastern Conference a little bit too. But no, the West is just a bloodbath. I can't wait. I think probably 6 of the 8 teams, if you told me they came out of the West, I really wouldn't be surprised at all. That's how tough this conference is, and the Warriors got one of those really tough series as well. So looking forward to getting into all of it.
All right, let's dive right in, and we'll keep it simple. I'm just going to ask you the questions as a means to get into the conversation that I've thrown out to the listeners and to the viewers on YouTube and everybody on the text line here. You didn't get a chance to talk a lot about it with Pop, with your civic duty, which is now complete. Yesterday. So I filled in for you, and we had about 4 hours. We basically talked to all Warriors for 4 hours in previewing the series. But I'll ask you, let's go prediction first. Give me your prediction for the series and why, and then we'll get into X Factor and wild card and maybe biggest question mark off of that. But just let's start. We're not going to bury the lead. Give me your prediction first. I got Warriors in 6, by the way.
All right, I like it. Yeah, it's funny. I was actually texting Sam Gordon a bit yesterday of the San Francisco Chronicle, one of my favorite guys to read, coming off of Warriors games. And we were both kind of bonding over the fact that we don't really enjoy doing series predictions to just put a number on it. But I'm going to go with the Warriors in 7. I think that, interestingly, going for a road team in a game 7 is a bit of an outside-the-box prediction, but I just think that you look at the reasons why the Rockets could flourish in this series, and you look at the reasons why the Warriors could flourish in this series, and it's really different for each team. And I think ultimately, if it comes down to it, the Warriors wouldn't have a terrible time compared to your average team on the road in a Game 7, getting it done if they have to, being the experience, the championship acumen on this team, the fact that I think that as great of a coach as Ime Udoka has been with his time in Boston and now Houston, Steve Kerr's just done it more, and he's reached the mountaintop 4 times, and just the way he's been able to adjust over a series, I think, is an advantage as well. So I think the longer it goes on, the more it could benefit the Warriors in that regard. That being said, the rest schedule also tightens up later in the series, so that's something that could benefit the Rockets. But in the end, I will go with the Warriors in a Game 7, and it just kind of comes down to this, JD. If you got the best player in a series, and the Warriors have with Steph in just about every series, then you definitely have a shot. But that sometimes wasn't enough, and it wasn't enough in a lot of the regular season, which is why they made the trade to go and get Jimmy Butler. And now you have the two best players in this series. So if you're going to list out the best players in a hierarchy in the series, it would go Steph, Jimmy, then, maybe you want to throw Şengün in there. Draymond's so unique, you probably put him somewhere in that mix. And then it goes Rocket, Brandon Pajemski, or whichever Warrior you want to pick next on the list. So Warriors are a really top-heavy team, but I do think if Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond, the way they were all able to work together at the end of the Memphis game, if they can all stay healthy or healthy enough to get through a series, I'll take them to squeak out by Houston by a thin margin.
All right, Greg Silver joining us here, just dubs on this Saturday, previewing the Warriors and the Rockets series. X Factor and wild card, two different things there. Again, I won't give you my whole spiel because I've been doing it through the first hour of the show. But my X Factor for the Warriors is Quentin Post. My wild card for the Warriors is Jonathan Kuminga. He could do something if he gets an opportunity. We're not too sure if he's going to get the opportunity, but obviously the way that he's played against the Rockets is not nothing either. I'll give you my take on Quentin Post in a minute, but those would be my two picks. So give me your X Factor, and then give me maybe a wild card for the series.
Well, when you said X Factor, my immediate thought was this, and you could tell me if you want me to be more specific, but it was just tertiary scoring. Because you think about the Memphis game, and really the Warriors never got it, right? Like down the stretch, I mean, it was Jimmy for those first three quarters, and then Steph really woke up and sort of brought the whole thing home. But you didn't really get it from Buddy Hield or Brandon Pajemski or Moses Moody. And yeah, you can win a game like that, and you can beat a Memphis team whose defense has suffered like that. But against the Houston Rockets, you're going to have to find some tertiary scoring. Now, what's interesting about the Warriors' current roster construction is that that's not an obvious guy, right? Like, it could be Brandon Pajemski, but maybe it's also Moses Moody for a game in the series. Maybe it is Quentin Post and the way he was able to hit outside shots against Memphis. Maybe it's Jonathan Kuminga if he's able to get enough minutes and, earn the trust of the coaching staff to keep him out there for extended stretches. So I just think in general, it's got to be some kind of tertiary scorer to Steph and to Jimmy Butler. And maybe it's Gary Payton II with the way he can kind of get crafty around the rim. The bottom line is I don't think that this roster and the way everyone's roles have been kind of set around Jimmy, I don't think it's going to be one guy. So I think you need to get it from different guys on different nights. That's why I think the X factor is who can give you the third scoring option, even if they don't need to do it 7 times. Maybe Moses Moody can just really find his shot for 2 of the games. Maybe Brandon Pajemski can be that guy for 2 of the games. Maybe Quentin Post has a night where it's just his night of the series. As far as X factor, I'm actually going to go on the other side, and I'm going to go with a player that is similar to Jonathan Kuminga, and sometimes I wish Jonathan Kuminga was in Amen Thompson. Just the way that he defended Steph Curry, I know, got a lot of people's eyeballs in that game in which the Warriors lost by Houston by 10 points at the end of that really tough 4-game stint where they're fighting for a playoff seed. And yeah, he was great, and the Warriors were definitely gassed. But I just think that the way he defends, his feel for the game, being a true triple-double kind of guy, I mean, yeah, he is rightfully being talked about right now as a guy that's going to be a problem and could be a really big challenge for Steph. Now, we know, watching a lot of Warriors basketball and the way they've adjusted over series, that Steph in time usually finds a way to ultimately prevail over the guy that is doing a lot of work to stop him. But Amen Thompson's a really good young player. I'm looking forward to watching him in this series just from the standpoint of loving the game and loving young players that are up and coming. But just kind of seeing how he defends and how it kind of evolves over the course of 4 to 7 games. That's sort of my X factor for this one, JD, his overall defensive effectiveness.
Yeah, and I think he has the ability. He's such a wild card in terms of just how he's used. Like, is he going to be somebody that they just throw on Steph Curry at times? Yes. Is he somebody they put on whoever they think is going to try to? The Warriors are going to try to get him. They're going to try to get him switched onto Steph Curry. Obviously, is what I'm saying. Or do they go? And I think that is part of why the Rockets are a difficult matchup. I mean, they do have different players they can throw at Steph. They can go Dylan Brooks. They can go Van Vliet. They can let Amen Thompson switch and get in the passing lanes and try to really muck up the offense in that vein while having a potentially capable defender on others. So I think that's something that you definitely have to keep an eye on here. I mean, we've seen Van Vliet guard Steph. We've seen Amen Thompson guard Steph. We've seen, in the past, Dylan Brooks, although Brooks, I think, probably figures to be, more on either Draymond or Jimmy Butler, because I think one thing that the Rockets are going to have to combat against is if they take Steph away, the Warriors have been able to compete and still win, because this is not the 7-shot a game Jimmy Butler. This is not the content to go for 13 or 14 points Jimmy Butler. This is the I'm going to go for 30 or 35 or close to 40 points Jimmy Butler. So the Rockets are going to have to account for that now, I think, in addition to Steph. And then the onus would go on the others for the Warriors to be able to hit shots. We're talking with Greg Silver here on Just Dubs on this Saturday morning. John Dickinson with you. We're here till noon, previewing, of course, the Warriors and the Rockets, which tip off Sunday in Houston with Game 1, Game 2 on Wednesday, and then this thing is spread out. I think the Warriors have to make hay, and we'll get your question mark. To me, they have to make hay in the first 4 games of this series. I don't want to say they have to be up 3-1, Greg, but I think they have to be up 2-1. As we get into the every other day nature of the series. The Warriors have been afforded, I think, the 4 days instead of 5, ended up not being, I think, as big a deal. They would have had 5 had they beaten the Clippers and played the Lakers tonight. They didn't get 5. Yes, they had to play an extra game. They still get the 4 days, but I think the league's doing the Warriors a solid here early, but if they don't take advantage of it, I think they could find themselves in a world of hurt physically if they're trying to come back in this series as these games go on, and it's every other day with travel.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, 2-1's a good call. It might not have to be 3-1, but it's got to be at least 2-2, and that would go under any circumstance, right? Like, I get that that's not a hot take to say you're going to want to be 2-2 with Houston with 3 games to play possibly and 2 on the road, but you're going to want to be at least 2-2, and 3-1's not a terrible call either, especially if you got a chance to go and close it out on your home floor, maybe in a 6. And I know that was your prediction initially. So the reason I went 7 is because this is not the Warriors of 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, where it just seems like it's easy and they've got everybody in their prime and blowouts.
They're going to need an extra game no matter what, right? Like whatever you think they would do it in, they're going to need an extra game to actually do it, and that might get them bit.
Exactly, right. And so it just seems to be never easy. Even go back to the play-in game against Memphis and the fact that they were even 7 in the first place. So, I think that, it's interesting. I heard you saying before I came on, I tuned in about the last 10 minutes of the last segment, just enough to hear all the brick comparisons by our guy, San Jose Jazz fan. But you said you almost got to win Game 1 or else Houston could really get going with some confidence. And I kind of thought about 2018 when Houston had the home court advantage. They were the top seed. And look, obviously 2 very different teams back then, but the Warriors went into Houston and they stole Game 1. And then Game 2 wasn't even close. The Rockets just blew them out. And Steve Kerr kind of called out his team after the game and was like, yeah, we looked like we were content to split the series and just get on the plane and go back home. So in a way, I almost think if they win Game 1, I worry about the possibility of a letdown in Game 2. Now, from the perspective of Warriors fans out there, you're like, hey, look, I'll take Game 1. That'd be a great problem to have. Again, I think you can afford to lose the first 2 if you're able to protect home court. But winning one of those first 2 road games is going to give you a lot of breathing room, especially under the circumstance that, let's be honest, they haven't been a bad home team. They haven't been a great home team either, and they lost their last 3 home games, which is the reason that they ended up in the play-in tournament before they had to break that streak.
Yeah, 24-17, 24-17 in the regular season, home and away. They ended up exactly the same. I think since Jimmy Butler has joined the team, they've been better on the road. Aside from some games against some lesser opponents where they got off to some bad starts and were able to come back and win, Chicago and Brooklyn, the games where they had both guys. Again, I throw out the games where one of them didn't play. Steph didn't play in Atlanta or Miami. I throw those out. I just don't think this is a very good team. If one of those guys don't play, they're not beating anybody. There might be 4 or 5 teams in the whole league that they would even beat in a series if Steph and if they had to not have Steph or Jimmy for even a game or two. I feel like in a series. I want to go back to the point just quickly about the schedule, because and where the series has to sit at certain points. And you mentioned get game one and my words, not yours, but kind of punt on game two, like what they did back in 2018. I go back to and I mentioned this yesterday when I was on with Pop. I go back to the Lakers 2 years ago against the Warriors. I think what's important in this, what's important in this series for the Warriors is to, I think, manage the series. Like the games that are right there to win have to be won. And if you do win the pivot points, not that it's going to be 1-1, 2-2, and 3-3, but if you win the pivot points, game one, game three, if it comes down to game five, I just think you get to a point where you do, because this is an older team, have to manage. You got to go all in on some games and make sure you get them, and then you might not go all in on other games if you're in a position of advantage. I actually don't think that's the worst thing in the world for the Warriors, because they have to make sure that they have enough for the back end. So winning game one, if game two does turn into a blowout, again, you're more reluctant to have that, in my mind, just based on the fact that you get the 2 days off in between. But to me, it's like if you gotta lay it up game two, it ensures that you get 3 and 4, and then you kind of punt game 5, but you're fresher for game 6. I felt the Lakers kind of did that against the Warriors 2 years ago. The pivot point was obviously there were 2. It was game 1 that the Warriors, I think, were gassed in that game, having to play the 7th game against Sacramento. The Lakers were a little bit more rested. And then game 4 was a game where the Warriors kind of had it and the Lakers stole it in the fourth quarter. And then that flipped the series because the Warriors couldn't come back and win a game in LA. But I don't know. I think series management is going to be important here for you can't be the underdog. And again, I know they're not the betting underdog, but you can't be the lower seed in this thing and give away a game when you have a game, which is another thing to kind of keep an eye on.
No, 100%. And I would also say that this is just as important, JD, in the sense that they've got to take care of their business in the clutch games. And if you're listening to that, you're thinking, wow, gee, Silver, nice take. You got to win the clutch games in a playoff series. But what I mean by that on a second layer level is if the Warriors have a chance to wrap up a game or protect a small lead or maybe even steal one that you felt like they had no business in being in for the first 3 quarters, they got to go and take those, because I could absolutely see this being the kind of series where the Golden State Warriors can win the games that they got to grind out a little bit at the end, or they make the big plays with their best players down the stretch. And the ones they lose, it can look a little bit like what we just saw in that last matchup where it's like, oh, geez, they don't have it. They look old. They look banged up. They look tired. And they lost this one by 15, and you knew it kind of was headed that way with about 9 minutes left in the game. I don't think the Warriors are going to be winning games in that fashion, whereas I think the Houston Rockets could be. So if it's kind of tight down the stretch and it ends up being your typical clutch game and the Warriors have a chance to go and win it, you got to take care of business there.
Yeah, you got to handle business there. Greg, great stuff, man. As always, appreciate the time. I know you're going to be popping in from time to time on Dubs OT while I'm in Houston, and especially for game 2. I know you're going to be a big part of that show on the YouTube only, and I'm going to be hopping on with you guys as well throughout the week and throughout the series. So really looking forward to it. Tomorrow night's going to be fun, and I know you're excited that your civic duty has been fulfilled, and you'll be able to be on with Pop again here on Monday at 10.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Really appreciate you filling in for me yesterday. And as the Clash said it the best, I fought the law, and the law won.
Yes. Yeah. At least for about, I don't know, 90 minutes. I mean, how long were you even there? Like 90 minutes, and did they actually, like, how did it all play out? 30-second version.
30-second version is they had enough people to fill a couple of panels, and then
Got it.
I had to talk to somebody and just be like, hey, I actually don't live here. And I kind of tried to explain that on the online portal. This, long story short, this was for a county that was not San Francisco County. And then they were just like, all right, just fill out this form. And then I left, and hey, the rest is still unwritten.
Nice. All right. Now you'll get one, and now you'll get a summons for San Francisco County.
During the NBA finals or something.
In like 2 weeks, you'll get like, yeah, you don't have to report to that one, but you got to report to this one. All right. All right, Greg. Good stuff, man. We'll talk here soon, and have a great show Monday.
Thanks, JD. Appreciate you.
All right, Greg Silver joining us here on Just Dubs. Quick timeout. More from the chat, more from the phone lines. 808 KNBR. We roll on here on a Saturday on the Sports Leader. Wow, Steve Kerr admitting that Jimmy Butler has changed him in terms of the offense, basically, that he's comfortable running. And how can you not, as the Warriors, all the success that they've had down the stretch here to work themselves into the playoffs, didn't get into the top 6, but they are 7th, and they're playing the Rockets, and it's all beginning tomorrow. And we're going to be all over it here on KNBR as I am headed to Houston. We'll be having Dubs OT for you after game 1, after game 2, and then game 3 a week from tonight. So the series a little bit spread out here. Final half hour of Just Dubs on this Saturday morning. Warriors on the court as we speak right now in Houston. About to have their media availability. A little bit of a different schedule, obviously having to do the show here and then head out a little bit later in the afternoon. But the Warriors changing up their schedule a little bit in having to play this extra game against the Grizzlies on Tuesday. They took Wednesday completely off. Players had and again, I think this is all trying to preserve some older bodies for what truly is going to be an extremely physical series. And I think physical and borderline dirty series that this is going to turn into. But the Warriors gave everybody Wednesday off. They did not get on the floor and have practice on Thursday. It was a late in the afternoon film session, basically an installation of the game plan for the series on Thursday. And then they had a practice early. Typically, the Warriors practice about 11 to 12, 11 to 12:30, somewhere in there. They practiced early, 9 a.m. yesterday, and then flew to Houston. Historically, they would have had a little bit of a later practice yesterday, flown today, and then had a practice once they land in Houston. Now, Steve Kerr, and again, I think it's the sleep and fatigue studies and the monitors and all the different things that the Warriors have, and having an aging team, a little bit of a different direction for the way the Warriors have mapped this thing out. Practicing here in the Bay Area yesterday, and then heading to Houston, getting a night's sleep and getting acclimated in Houston last night, having a practice basically at their normal practice time today in Houston. So if anything trickles in here from post-Warriors practice in the lead up to game 1, we'll be all over that for you. But yeah, they'll have a shoot around, I would imagine, tomorrow with the 8:30 Central Time tip. But going at it, I think strategically a little bit different than they have in the past, with obviously a much older team, and they're going to be in Houston for a while. I mean, they got in yesterday. Again, typically it's day before the game, especially for a later game. I wonder if maybe the Warriors thought they were going to be playing an earlier game, and because they were going to be playing an earlier game, potentially they would want to go Friday and not get in late afternoon with the 2:30 start tomorrow. But it's an 8:30 start, so they go in a different direction as it relates to that. But yeah, they're going to be in Houston all the way up until Wednesday night, basically. 6 full days, essentially 6 nights. 6 full days with Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the Warriors, and then obviously take Thursday off. They'll probably get a practice in Friday, and get ready for game 3 and the every other day nature of that series. So a couple of things here in 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Couple on the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line. We'll get back to the YouTube chat as well. We'll do an expanded edition of Kyle's Clicks here. Coming up in our final segment. We'll basically make the whole segment about that. 510, asking for your predictions, your wild card, your X factor, your biggest question mark in the series. 510, Rockets in 6. The youth and energy overwhelms the Warriors. X factor is Van Vliet. Rockets in 6 from the 510. 801, who does the league office want, and how much do the refs come into play? I feel like that is much less of a talking point in the Adam Silver NBA commissioned world than it was I shouldn't say it's still a talking point, but it feels like the instances where the team that you think is going to win just based on the officiating, really maybe other than the Lakers, they've kind of let things play out. But in the old world, I mean, let's be honest. And I always say this to Warrior fans, like if you believe the league wants a team to win in a particular series, there would be three teams in the league. Let me say it this way. If you're a Warrior fan and you really want to go down the path of who does the league want to win, the top four teams that the league would want to win would be Boston, New York, in no particular order. Boston, New York, the Lakers, and Warriors. Like the Warriors would be in the top four in that cat, and the Warriors would be ahead of everybody other than maybe the Lakers in a series. So in a Western series. So, and again, once you get to the finals, it doesn't really matter. So I think if it's an East team, who cares? But if you really want to go down the conspiracy theory road, the Warriors are one of the haves and not one of the have-nots. I know Warrior fans like to think they're one of the have-nots and Steph doesn't get this whistle. And again, if you believe in that, and I don't totally, I think I used to more than I do now. But if you truly believe in that, the Warriors are like nobody in the league office would be saying, "Yeah, I want the Rockets to win." Come on, like. But again, I'm half kidding in bringing it up. But again, reality check. The league wants Steph and LeBron, preferably not in a first round series. So it's aligned right now. Steph and LeBron are on track to play in the second round, and so. Again, if you are in the conspiracy theories, but yeah, who the officials are in a lot of these individual games, of course, is going to be a huge part of the conversation. One thing we haven't gotten to, and there's a lot of different notes and things and takeaways, and we had Gary St. Jean on yesterday. I was filling in for Greg Silver with Greg Papa. He mentioned rebounding. I think the Rockets are the number one offensive rebounding team in the league. That's a component to this that we have not discussed really on this show yet. But the Warriors have been showing a propensity of late to get beat on the glass and get beat in particular on the offensive glass. And if Sengun and Adams is one of the greatest offensive rebounders maybe of all time, certainly of the last 20 years in the NBA. And, how much do they play Adams and Sengun together? They've done it more against other teams than they did it against the Warriors. They did do it against the Warriors, but they did it when Steph was not on the court because I think they were afraid Steph would take the game over if they did it with Steph on the court. But as much as, like, to me, the two biggest things, holding your own on the glass, not just you may lose the battle, but you don't want to be completely dominated and allowing second chance points left and right. The Rockets score off turnovers and they score off second chances. It truly is like that. That is where they offset the fact that they're a bad half-court offense team that can't shoot. Like that's it. Like you have to find ways to mitigate that to be still a top 12 offense. And it's transition opportunities, defense turning into offense, layups and dunks going the other way, early offense. It's that, and it's throw up a brick and go get it off the rim and put it back in. Like that. So those are two things in addition to can the others make shots that aren't Steph and Jimmy Butler, the third, fourth level scoring. And in addition to, can the Warriors physically hold up to the athleticism and size and the long haul of a 6 or a 7 game series against a much, much younger overall and more athletic team. So I think those are a key component as we look at a lot of key components to this series. All right, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Let's go and take another quick timeout. We'll come back and we'll do an expanded edition of Kyle's Clicks. And then we will hand things off to Larry, our 49ers forecast. Our pre-draft edition of that is coming up from noon until 2. We got Giants baseball later on in the afternoon and this evening as they're taking on the Angels down in Anaheim, trying to get back on track after dropping a couple in a row. And we're all over it, whether it's Warriors, Niners, or Giants. It's just it's the best coverage in the Bay. And it's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader. And I think Steph Curry would echo being glad that Jimmy Butler is on his team, this Warriors team, as the Warriors look to embark on this journey, the quest for 5 for Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Steve Kerr. It all begins tomorrow, and wow, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to be all over it. Just Dubs, JD, John Dickinson. Final segment here before we hand it off to Larry Krueger. 49er Forecast Draft Preview Edition. What a time to be alive here in the Bay Area. Such a huge time. The Giants off to the 13-7 start in the first 20 games of this season. The draft coming up, just a pivotal draft for the 49ers next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And the way that it all shakes out, as I've mentioned a couple of times, you can get game 1 in of the Warriors-Rockets series. You can get game 2 in. And in between game 2 and game 3, you got the draft. The entire draft will take place between game 2 and game 3. So you can shift your focus Thursday and Friday, and for the first half of Saturday at least, to the NFL and the 49ers, and obviously peppering in some Giants, which will be all over with the game coverage here on the Sports Leader. So final segment, again, just to reiterate, I'm taking the Warriors in 6. I think the Warriors either split the first 2, win 3 and 4 at home, lose game 5, and close it out on the home floor in 6 games against the Rockets. I'm taking the Lakers over the Timberwolves. So I've got Warriors-Lakers in the second round. I'm taking the Clippers over the Nuggets, and Oklahoma City over Memphis. The Grizzlies getting into the playoffs last night by knocking out the Dallas Mavericks. In the East, I'm going chalk. I do think the most compelling series. I mean, I am taking Cleveland, Boston, New York over Detroit. I think that's maybe the most interesting Eastern series. I'm going to take Milwaukee to end up. They're not going to win today. They're getting blown out. I'm actually going to take Milwaukee to win that series in 7. Dame Lillard's going to come back in the Eastern Conference. So I'm going to go Milwaukee and the chalk in the Eastern Conference as the playoffs get going here. All right, let's my X Factor, Quentin Post, my wild card, Jonathan Kuminga. And again, I think that the biggest keys to this series for the Warriors, they have to hold their own on the rebounding. They have to not get dominated where it's a bunch of second chance points and easy scoring opportunities for the Rockets. Rockets have to get the extra possessions and buckets. They have to get buckets in transition off their defense, steals, breakouts, because they are not a good half-court team. So I think that the nuts and bolts of this series really boils down to that. And will the others make shots? Podziemski and Moody and Quentin Post. The Warriors are going to have a little of that. And make hay early in the series is the other thing for the Dubs. You get a nice little spread out first 3-4 games, and then it is just coming at you every other day with travel. I don't think the Warriors can come back in this series. If they get down, 0-2, 3-1, that's where they're obviously getting, even 2-2, I think coming back to Houston, depending upon how it looks, I think has the potential to be problematic with again, you're talking halfway across the country with one day, basically a travel day in between those games. So let's close it out here. Final 3-4 minutes dedicated to some Kyle's clicks, the folks in the YouTube chat who we appreciate. And we'll be talking to you again after the game tomorrow on Dubs OT. So what do we got here, Kyle? Read the Steed, X Factor, Batman. We're talking superheroes this show. That's right. Jimmy Butler laid it out. He's the Robin to Steph Curry's Batman. So Steph Curry's the X Factor, or maybe really it's Batman. I'm still trying to figure out who Two-Face is. When Jimmy referenced that in the Western Conference, maybe it's Dylan Brooks. Maybe Dylan Brooks is Two-Face. I don't know, but good comment there from Reed the Steed. Jimbo, be interesting to see if the Rockets can play fast and loose in a game that matters. I do think that's one of the Warrior big advantages is just the experience. I think the Rockets could look pretty bad in terms of their late game execution. That's been a problem for them. I know the Warriors, since Jimmy Butler has come into the fold, they've been much better in clutch games like that. That's something that should be an advantage for the Warriors. If it's not, then they're in big trouble. because I think you have to win the things that you think are going to be an advantage coming in. Thank you to Jimbo. Moving on, B's knees. Warriors in 5. Wow, Warriors in 5. Draymond is the X factor, can hit multiple threes in every game. Pods and Moody have to average 30 combined. I think you can get away in an individual game with Pods or Moody not shooting it well or scoring. I do not think you can get away with both more than maybe one time in a series. Maybe one time in a series you can get away with that. But it would end up being kind of like a game where you really have to eke and grind it out, like the Memphis game in the play-in tournament on Tuesday. All right, couple of more here, final couple of minutes. Jason Mishler, Amen Thompson going to turn into Dellavedova. Wow, there has been a lot of the Curry stopper talk, which, again, be careful what you wish for, because everybody that's been the Curry stopper has wound up not being the Curry stopper by the end of a lot of these playoff series. And again, I think Ime Udoka poking the bear, it was not the right move. And I think he did it basically calling the Warriors a bunch of whiners after that game 2 weeks ago. I mean, do that at your own peril is what I said that night on Dubs OT. I think he said it trying to instill confidence in his team, believing that they weren't going to play him again, because it looked at that point like they weren't going to play, that the Warriors were going to finish ahead of 7. Well, now you're playing the whiners again, Ime. So buckle up, big man. One more, final one. Florida Dubs fan, another X factor. Jimmy cannot wait too long to turn into Burt Ward. Got to be playoff Jimmy all game long, and I think all series long. Yeah, nothing to play with early on in the series. All right, that's going to do it for Raph and for Kyle Haar. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Dubs OT. Larry Krueger's coming up next. 49ers forecast, NFL draft preview straight ahead here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.